Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Don Marsh. The Mathews-Dickey Boys and Girls Club in St. Louis is a revered institution that has helped thousands of young St. Louis men and women get their lives off to a good start. The story of how it started and how it succeeded is an inspiring one, and the names of people who are involved at all levels reads like a who's who of St. Louis for the past 60 years. And read about it you can in the book, I Trust You With My Life. Author Dick Weiss tells the story of club founders Martin Mathews and Dickie Ballantine, of the people who helped and those who were helped along the way. With me in studio are Martin Mathews and Dick Weiss. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being with us.
Great to be here. Thanks for having us.
Martin Mathews, it's always a pleasure to see you. Congratulations on the book and telling a good story so well. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
But let me point out something. I think it's important for people to realize that the Mathews-Dickey Boys and Girls Club is about much more than sports, isn't it?
That's correct.
Yeah.
You know, the
Explain.
Bible and the Constitution is where we were actually founded on.
It's what? I'm sorry?
Was founded on the Bible and the Constitution.
It's about values.
That's correct.
Right. You had indicated at some point, as I read in the book, that games were just bait.
That's correct. You bait them and you bring them in, and then you can teach them what you want them to do. You want to get their attention.
What did you want to teach them specifically?
Well, how to live in a great country, you know. And if you in America, if you do two things, if you treat others like you want to be treated, and then you decide what we want to do, we want to, not I, you, or they, we, and that's what we do. And that's what most, you know, if you got a ball team, we win, not I, you, or they, we.
The preface of the book begins with one of the important facets of your approach to things, and that is trust and the importance of trust, and that takes you all the way back to your very beginning, doesn't it?
That's correct, you know, trust, and that came from my mother and father, which trust my doctor at that time to name me Martin Luther. And so anytime you grew up in 1925 and a German doctor come and see you, said, look, I want to name you Martin Luther. So they had trust in him and that him named me. So for my life, all along while the doctor was there, anything I needed, he'd take care of it because he trusted me and we trusted him.
Martin Luther Mathews, that's the full moniker.
That's correct.
Dick, explain the title for me.
Well, I Trust You With My Life is really just how the kids at Mathews-Dickey Boys Club and later the Girls Club felt about Mr. Mathews. They trusted him. They would come over to his home and sit on his porch and wait for him to come home from work and listen to him talk about life. They just loved being around him, and he always spent time with them. He would pretend that they were bothering him or getting in the way of what he needed to do, but he would always spend time with them. And that for kids who were growing up, many of them had moms and dads, but they were busy working a couple of jobs, sometimes 3 jobs, and so they didn't always have their parents around. And Mr. Mathews was a father figure to them.
Martin, I think that it must have been a nuisance at some occasion. Was it?
Well, it was and it wasn't because the need was there. You know, when the young people could show up at the house for something that they wasn't able to get at home or school in the streets, so I was able to supply that. And I think that's what I was able to do, and my life was built around that. Well, that give the kids what they didn't find at home, what they didn't find at school or either in the streets good. And so therefore mostly all the kids went on to be outstanding citizens.
One of the most important factors of the club was that it did keep kids off the streets, kept them busy, and if parents were working, they knew where their kids were.
That's correct, and that's what you always want to do, is have a safe environment and where they trust you and you trust them. And that's why you have to build that trust.
Dick, you talked to an awful lot of people in doing research for this book. What did you learn?
Well, I have to tell you, Don, this was my most favorite project in my life. And when I first connected to the Mathews-Dickey Club, we put together a little contract that called for me to interview a couple dozen people. And Mr. Mathews would call me and says, well, I need you should talk to this young man. Of course, the young man was like 65, 70 years old. And when you're 92 going on 93, everybody looks young to you. But I never said no, because everybody he referred me to had a fascinating story. So I ended up interviewing like 75 or 80 people. And these stories were for me, white kid growing up in the suburbs, University City, about the same time as many of the people I interviewed, were revelatory. I just had no idea the challenges that they faced and the obstacles that they overcame to put together very successful lives. And so many of these kids growing up went on to get into the helping professions, just like Mr. Mathews, and teachers, social workers, and so on. And they are helping, just as Mr. Mathews is, they are helping another generation of kids make it in this world.
I think you say in your book, or someone said of it, that probably more than 1 million kids have been helped, not through the club per se, but by the exporting, if you will, of the people who went through the club and then went on to bigger and better things.
Yeah, I did my due diligence when that million figure was given to me. He says, well, I said, how many kids has the club helped? And they said 1 million. I said, well, that can't possibly be, because there are only a couple of thousand in a given year, and it's been in business 50 plus years. But then when you look at the
ripple effect,
3 generations have gone through this, it becomes exponential because these folks have helped people, and it isn't just the people who go into the helping professions. They're bankers and they're business people too, but they give back in their own way. And so I think you can justify that 1 million figure pretty easily.
Martin Mathews, when you look back and recognize all these people that have been helped through your efforts, what kind of thoughts go through your mind?
Well, a lot of times thoughts through my mind, because all the places I could have went and did it, I passed them up, Passed up being a multimillionaire's son. Passed up going to Fortune 500 company where they had 23 positions for me in order to stay to St. Louis. And I look at that and I said, well, why shouldn't I did it? Then I look at that, well, out of all the people I was able to touch, and people walk on the streets and see me, said, thank you for being at Mathews-Dickey, it made me think I made the right decision.
What got you started on this path in the first place?
Well, a man named A.C. Anderson, who helped me when I first got married, I was having trouble finding me a place. And so he let me live with him. I lived with him until I was able to save enough money to buy my own house. And he remembered that, because when I did get my own house, I was there cutting my lawn one day, and he sent his grandson over to tell me to come over to his house. So I go over to his house, and he was laying in bed and had a stroke, and said he had 30 kids he wanted me to help him with, because he felt that I need to come and help him, because he felt I was the right person. So what I said to him, yes, but I really didn't want to, because I had promised my wife I was going to get out of sports, because I was a semi-pro ball player, traveled a lot. But looked at him, thought about what he had did for me, and gave me opportunity, and I said yes. So I taken him I said yes, that was on Tuesday. On Friday, I get home one day with 3 boys sitting on my steps. I said, what do you guys want? He said, we need $25 to get in the Corey League. I said, what? And so I just had cashed my check. My check was about $57 at that time. But I gave them that $25, and they went on and got in the Corey League. And they did so well, and Prill trusted me, and I trusted him, and that's what got me hooked. I couldn't get out.
That wasn't the only time you dug into your own pocket to help out the boys and help out the whole process, was it?
No, it wasn't. Once you get involved, you have to do that. Whatever was needed, they always come by, Like we wanted to do something. I wanted to get new uniforms, so I had to go in my pocket to do that. Whatever you needed, you would always. The kids need something, When the parents weren't able to do it, so I always went in my pocket and did.
And both these gentlemen, Mr. Mathews and Mr. Dickey, as he was called, took out second mortgages on their homes to finance this team. And Mr. Mathews is right that he was offered jobs at other places, and he could have climbed the corporate ladder and been very successful. Instead, he stayed in St. Louis, and he had to he worked 2 jobs along with the coaching. And he was a doorman on at a building on Skinker Boulevard, one of those jobs, and night doorman. And one of the fun stories about that was that he was named Humanitarian of the Year by the St. Louis Globe-Democrat. And the people, were subscribers to that newspaper in that building, and they think, our night doorman is Humanitarian of the Year? And they all came down and, for the festivities to honor him. So he was so admired, just in any place that he went. Remember that Sara Lee commercial? Nobody doesn't like.
Right, Sara Lee.
Nobody doesn't like Mr. Mathews.
And you're still getting a kick out of that story, aren't you?
Yes, because that was something. You had all the powerful people that lived in there, and then they were all at the Chase Hotel at that time. That time, it was hard to even go to the Chase Hotel, but they was all there to watch me get that award. And when Duncan Marmon gave me that award, probably that was one of the greatest things in my life outside of the President of the United States coming and awarding me. Yeah, that was great.
Well, when Mr. Mathews got to St. Louis, it was the Jim Crow era, and there were places that African Americans could not go. And
the Chase was right there.
Chase was right there among them, and he would. The thing that is so interesting and admirable about what he did is he crossed the Del Mar Divide, as we now know it, back and forth, and he made friends with anybody, no matter what color they were, and he had people who would on the right and the left supporting him. He had the grace and the wisdom to know how to talk to people in a way that they felt comfortable with, and he never played politics. He was it was all about the boys and the girls.
They must have felt comfortable because over the years they doled out a lot of cash to the Mathews-Dickey Boys and Girls Club, didn't they?
That's correct. When you was able to, one probably gives me more than anything. When Chuck Knight, I'm sure you remember him.
Oh, yeah.
He decided he was going to raise the funds for me to be able to move from the storefront to where we at. And he questioned me. He said, well, how much money you got after you decided to do that? And I was fortunate to save the money and had $147,000 in 1979 because of all the great people of this city who was donating to help me transfer from a storefront to the facility we have. And later you have the President of the United States come down and said, look, I wanted you to be a model for the country because I've been everywhere, seen everything, but this is the greatest place I've ever been. So that made me feel good and feel that I made the right decision not to accept all those great offers I had.
Well, I remember that visit by President Ronald Reagan. I think it was 1982. I was there. There's a great story that comes out of that that I'd like to mention too, but we have to take a break. We'll do that now. We're talking with Martin Mathews, the co-founder of the Mathews-Dickey Boys and Girls Club here in St. Louis. Dick Weiss has written about this club and the man, Martin Mathews, and many people who are behind the success of the organization. The author of the book, I Trust You With My Life. If you'd like to get into the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call at 382-8255. That's 382-TALK. Send us an email if you'd like to talk@stlpublicradio.org. Or if you'd prefer to send a tweet, we'll take that as well at STL On Air. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU. And welcome back as we continue our conversation with Martin Mathews and Dick Weiss. Dick, I'll turn to you very quickly. I mentioned the Ronald Reagan visit here. The funny story concerns a friend of all of ours, Bill Wilkerson, the late Bill Wilkerson, and former broadcaster and well-known, obviously. But you tell the story.
Yeah, well, Bill Wilkerson is one of the MC for this event, and he was for President Reagan's visit to the Boys Club, and President Reagan was in the back of the room and was not able to get up to the podium at the appointed time, and Bill needed to vamp a little bit. And you're not protocol says you are not supposed to go to the podium after the presidential seal has been affixed, and yet Bill has to do something, so he gets up there, and for a moment, perhaps presaging what was to come, Bill Wilkerson looks to be the president of the United States. And so he loved telling that story, and I was fortunate enough. I talked to Bill. It wasn't several months before he died, and he's just laughing and remembering that story, and as so many others were, he just loved working with the club and with Mr. Mathews and Mr. Dickey, who died I guess about 15 years ago now.
There was a picture taken of him behind that seal, and he loved that. I think it was on the front page of the Globe or the Post, or perhaps even both. Did you remember that story, Martin Mathews?
Yes, I did, because what happened, Ronald Reagan was trying to come in, and all the people would want to shake hands with him, and so he was delayed, and so the people who got him who was carrying, come on, and killed time. So Bill went up there and got that. The odd thing, people don't realize that when Ronald Reagan was going to come to Mathews-Dickey, they sent 23 Secret Service guys, spent 6 weeks with me, checking me out. There, in and out. I had lunch with them and supper, everything for 6 weeks. And so at the end, they asked me, said, you have anybody that we could trust to be the MC? So Bob Hyland had always gave me the right.
Highland of Camo X.
He always wound up giving me the person for that. And so Bill Wilkerson was always the person he would. When I need somebody, I said, what about Bill? I said, so the Secret Service, give me his address. So they went out and checked Bill out. They come back and say he's the right man. So that's how Bill wound up getting that job, because he had thousands of people would want that job. But Bill was dedicated enough, regardless of what we did, he always was at MC for us.
And let me add something in terms of the significance of that event, and that is that although Mr. Mathews was, I guess you would say, the needy figure in this thing, he needed the attention brought to his club and the donations. But at that time, President Reagan needed Mr. Mathews almost as much, because he was not popular with African Americans, and by standing alongside somebody, an eminent person in this community, an African American, he was able to sort of bathe in that glow, and that was the magic of the Mathews-Dickey Boys Club, that they were able to bring together people on the right and people on the left. And Mr. Ballantyne's family was very, very vociferously on to the left, and they had the street cred, and President Reagan benefited from that.
Well, both sides benefited, and that's always good when it works for both. How did you and Dickie Ballantine get together?
Well, you asked me that because both of us played semi-pro ball in our lifetime. And so I had a couple of teams, and I was always going and practice about 2 blocks away from where he practiced. But I had to let my wife have my car because in order to keep her quiet, and so I had to had to walk from Public School Stadium over to my house, and that was 2 blocks. And so I would get tired, so I happened to stop one day to watch Mr. Dickey. He was practicing his team. He looked up at and saw me. One day he came up there and he said, my name is Dickie Ballantine, and I told him my name, and we got talking. And we found out that both was having the same problem. We had to turn kids away. You'd have hundreds of kids come and want to get on the team, So I only could have 30, and he could only have 15. So we come with a great idea. Why can't we have boys club like they are in South St. Louis? We didn't realize the cost and the time it's going to take us. And so I forgot about it. That was in late July. In late October, I get a call one night, 1 o'clock at night. I said, Matt? Yeah. I said, this is Dickey. I said, yeah. I thought of the name for the boys club. I said, what? He said, how about us name it Mathews-Dickey? I said, I don't care what we name it, and hung up on him because I had to be up at 5 o'clock and go to work the next day. So that's how I got the name Mathews-Dickey, under shade tree and 1 o'clock at night.
I understand from Dick's book that now you say in the book that it's Ballantine, but everybody else is pronouncing it Ballantine.
Ballantine, yeah.
Ballantine is what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I've just lost my train of thought where I was going with that. The family was really kind of upset that it wasn't Mathews Ballantine.
Well, I think the family didn't know what they were doing because he didn't realize Mr. Ballantyne's got his name from a ball player that played with the Yankees. So therefore, the man who was his coach said, you're not a Dickey Ballantine. You could be a Dickey who played, because Ballantine never did anything in baseball. Dickey was the guy because Mr. Ballantine was a pretty good ball player. So that's how he got his name Dickey. He loved it, and he the one come up with the name.
Right.
Dickey.
He was comfortable with that name, but if you're the family, and you're Ballantine, well, the legacy, you want to be remembered that way. And so some family members were, feeling a little bit bad about that. What was interesting about these two gentlemen was they were so different in outlook. Mr. Dickey was a very proud African-American, and he studied history, and he was very much about self-help, a little bit like Malcolm X in that sense. And he didn't like going into the white community and asking for money. He thought we should all help ourselves and lift ourselves up. And but Mr. Mathews he says, well, I'm just trying to help the kids any way I can, and I will ask anybody for anything if it will help. And so they were kind of a little bit Mr. Inside, Mr. Outside, and they worked together very well as a prosperous relationship, but they were very different folks. And Mr. Dickey didn't even have an office at the club when they built the headquarters. He just said, I just want to coach the boys. That's all I want to do, and I don't want to get involved in all this PR. Yeah.
Martin Mathews, what was your technique? You were very successful, as we've indicated, in raising money. It seemed like people couldn't say no. Well, I'd like to know how you did it. I might want to try it myself sometime.
Well, like I said, I was born when Dr. Turner named me Martin Luther. So therefore, anything I needed, when I grew up in that little small town, need to go to the doctor, need anything, any clothes, anything. So therefore, it gave me here that you never judge people by the color of the skin. You judge by the contents of their character. And that's what I live by my life. You judge people by the contents of their character, not the color of their skin.
I'll tell you something else that the special sauce, as far as I could see, was this. He would not he would go to anybody and he would say, what can I do for you first? And there isn't anybody who doesn't need something, including privileged, wealthy people. And he would listen, and he would follow through on every promise he made and any connection or networking that he could do for somebody. And so when it came time for him to ask for a donation, he had put in an investment, and all he did was make a withdrawal.
Well, there's where the trust issue comes in once again. Well, we've got a caller here I'd like to bring into the conversation. Let's bring in Kevin, calling from Clayton. Kevin, thanks for waiting. You're on the air.
Yes, I'm calling on behalf of, like I said, I was a member of Mathews-Dickey's back when it started on Natural Bridge and close to Marcus, to show you how far back that was. And even before then, there was guys before me. But I want to let Mr. Mathews know that I definitely appreciate him and a lot of other coaches. I played with Coach Barnes and John Albert. I'm pretty sure he knows those guys. And you treated every kid like you knew everyone. All those kids that was at the, play baseball, basketball, whatever sport, you treated everyone the same and as if you knew everyone. So I want to let you know that I appreciate your dedication, along with all the other coaches at Mathews-Dickey, all the way from Natural Bridge until we moved up on Kings Highway, and we got the green practice jerseys when Ronald Reagan came in. So I know, Mr. Matthews.
There you go. You're the right man.
Call and let you know that I appreciate you, and you was like a father to all of us, and I'm so glad that they're acknowledging you today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you hear a lot from the graduates or former members of the club?
Yes, everywhere I go. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's so many alums who say Mr. Mathews is the greatest man I have ever met. I mean, here and there you might hear that about somebody, but to hear it over and over again, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, the book is filled with that, clearly. Linda Jones has, I guess, sent us an email or a tweet. Linda Jones, former girls program director from 90 to 95. Quote, she says, "Please give my regards to Mr. Mathews for his years of service and sincere concern for the youth and families in the community. I know firsthand many participants gained much and have become great contributors to the community as well." That's from Linda Jones.
Boy.
Yeah. Women have played a big role throughout the history of the club, but it was only 2001 when the club was expanded to include them as members. Took a long time. How come?
Well, we always had girls there, but didn't have the funds to do it. And I maybe made me think about a couple of things there. One time, a guy named Big Charlie Ruprecht, he's dead and gone, but he came to me, he said, "I want to take you to lunch." And he pulled out a book. He said, "I've been reading a book, said mostly African-American girls going to get pregnant before they graduate from high school. I want to know what can be done about that." And he said, "Would you take that over?" I said, "Well, that's a lot of money. Probably $100,000 probably would make me want to think about it." He said, "Well, I'm not going to agree to do anything, but I'll let you know." 2 weeks' time, he brought 20 women out there, and they all had $5,000 apiece. And so we started the girls' club there with that.
But as indicated, the women had been influential in the club for many years before that, behind the scenes primarily.
Behind the scenes, but we never had a lot of money to be able to bring them out, because it's always the Mothers Club was my success. It helped me do all the great things, but we never could get the money until we had Big Charlie Ruprecht pull that book out.
And we should mention Barbara Washington, who came along and built the fundraising for the girls in particular, created a sheer elegance fashion show that attracted hundreds and thousands of people, and Christine Buck was involved in that.
Karen Foss.
And
Wendy Weiss.
Wendy Weiss, right. And it became an annual extravaganza, and that helped as well.
Toward the end of the book, Dick, and I'm putting this to Mr. Mathews here, you were asked if you would do it all over again, and you said you wouldn't. I think that surprises a lot of people.
Well, what you go through in order to be able to do this, people don't realize what you do. You heard the trials and tribulations. That's what you go in there, And so you have to look at that, and that's where you have to look at, and you have to sum up. So Jesus Christ, and you're not Jesus Christ, but you have to look what he went through in order to give people opportunity. And I think that's what kind of made me a little bit more glad, because I said, all the people I was able to help, even though I had to deny my family and myself of all the things I should have done. But for people I helped, that probably no other thing could have been taken at that place.
When you look back over all those years, is there any one thing that stands out, your most important moment, most important memory perhaps?
Well, my most important memory would be when the President of the United States gets out his car, shakes hands with you and said, "Look, I'm President of the United States." Then he goes and said, "Declared, you are a model for the country. I want you to bring all your staff to Washington, D.C." So I was able to take it, be a guest at Washington, D.C. That's one standout with me.
Were you talking about President Reagan or President Wilkerson?
President Trump, well, I guess both. President Reagan was the man. Mm-hmm.
We have to wrap this up. Dick, where can people get the book?
So you can go to itrustyouvithmylife.org, and I think that link will be on the St. Louis Public Radio website in case you forget it. And it costs $30, a bargain, because we were selling it for $100, so we took $70 off. Uh-huh. And on your website, Don, there'll be a link to an article that I wrote about how Mr. Mathews' legacy lives on, kind of the cliff notes for the book, if you will, and you can get that. And there'll be a piece also in the St. Louis American this month for Black History Month.
Yeah. We should point out that $100 version of the book is the same book, but that was a fundraising.
Thing, yes.
That's why it sold for $100.
Feel free to put in $100 if you'd like.
Is that okay with you, Martin Mathews?
Well, that would be to carry on the legacy after I'm gone, because I invested so much in my life and what little money I had in order to do Mathews-Dickey. And I appreciate everything, appreciate this great country and everything in that. So I can try to preempt the Constitution, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union. So I feel that's what we're all about.
Well, we all appreciate Martin Mathews, too, and the great work you've done over the years. And don't go away. Hang around for a while longer, will you? Martin Mathews, thank you so much for being with us. Congratulations to you on all of your success and all of the accolades. Dick Weiss, thank you for being with us.
Don.
Great book. Interesting read, filled with St. Louis history and St. Louis people you've read about for a good long while. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.